Welcome to the Egyptian section of the Walters Art Museum. I am your tour guide, Teresa Hammond, and today we will be talking about ancient Egyptian artifacts. As you can see, a great deal of Egyptian art was large and commemorative, just like the Great Pyramids and powerful sphinxes. Let's take a closer look inside. This is bowl with fish and lotuses, a kind of ceramic bowl from the Egyptian New Kingdom around the 18th century, most likely around 1550 to 1400 BCE. It was discovered near the Nile River in western Thebes. Considering it was found near the river, what do you first notice about the piece? Perhaps the blue coloration, or the aquatic imagery, brings to mind the life-giving qualities of water. Now, squint your eyes and look at the bowl again. It almost looks like a little pool of water, right? This was achieved through techniques of illusionism to create the illusion of depth. Notice how the blue is lightest in the center, where the sun would naturally hit the most, and become significantly darker around the edges of the bowl. This creates a sort of faux pool edge that looks deeper than it really is. Additionally, the glaze is not evenly spread, but rather more naturally applied in varying values. This furthers the illusion even more by making the water look like it is moving and with varying depths. The yellowish spot beneath one of the fish may even resemble the dirt floor underneath the water. Next, let's talk about the images we see on the bowl. Taking up most of the space are the fish, which are actually tilapia. This is very significant because tilapia symbolize fertility and new life. You may be wondering what is coming out of their mouths and circling the fish. These are actually lotus flowers, which also represent rebirth. According to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, Massachusetts, the blue lotus, whose flowers open from sunrise through midday and close at sunset, was closely associated with the sun's rebirth each morning. This makes the imagery of the lotuses emerging from the mouths of the tilapia even more important because it suggests that rebirth and regeneration may be a property of the bowl itself. Let's think about why a bowl might be associated with these properties. Here's our bowl with another one very similar to it. They look like they could be siblings, right? These kinds of blue ceramic bowls found along the Nile River featuring aquatic imagery are actually referred to as marsh bowls, and the one on the right is owned by the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, Massachusetts. It features tilapia and lotus flowers in a circular orientation similar to the first bowl, which further perpetuates the idea of the cycle of life and rebirth. There are several other marsh bowls in existence. So what could be the significance of these water-themed bowls? Well, marsh bowls were actually not generally used for eating, so we know that they are not just your average bowl. Some of these bowls have been discovered in shrines and altars for spirits of the dead, so their purpose may have actually been to provide offerings. Something else that sets marsh bowls apart from other bowls is their shallow height. Bowl with fish and lotuses is actually only 3 3/4 inches high, but 5.5 inches long, making it very short. While this shallow height may seem to defeat the purpose of a bowl, it actually is the perfect way to hold offerings safely in tombs and shrines. The short walls allow the spirits easy access to whatever is held inside. As we previously discussed, the bowl is designed to look like a pool of water, so the short height provides easier access to this life-giving water, as well as whatever is placed inside. Though not high, the walls of the bowl are steep enough to contain whatever it is inside. A prevalent Egyptian belief was that the dead continued on in the afterlife and continued to need the same necessities that they did in life, so it is a definite possibility that the purpose of bowl with fish and lotuses was to continue providing spirits with water even after their physical deaths. Here are some more marsh bowls. As you can see, they all share a very specific look. They all feature the iconic lotus flowers, as well as the aquatic shades of teal and blue, and are similarly shallow heights. On the bottom left, you might notice the familiar design of tilapia carrying lotus flowers in their mouths. Bowl with Fish and Lotuses is the only marsh bowl currently owned by the Walters Art Museum, but there are several other marsh bowls owned by other museums. For instance, the bowl in the center bottom is currently owned by the Metropolitan Museum of Art and was found at the foot of a coffin inside a tomb alongside other small amulets and objects. Clearly, these bowls were popular choices for supporting spirits on their journeys after death. These marsh bowls are actually a kind of ceramic called faience, which is a medium often used by Egyptians. Faience is made out of silica, that comes from sand, as well as other sediments, and it is usually a brilliant teal or blue due to the reaction of copper. Although similar to glasswork, faience is formed and molded when it is cold rather than hot, and the heat solidifies the shape. Although Egyptians recognized it was a man-made material, they still considered faience to be a kind of stone, and worked with it as they would with glass or natural stone. This adds another dimension to these faience marsh bowls, because it demonstrates that the intentional decision to use a material that is slightly elevated from natural blue stone like lapis lazuli and turquoise. The blue colorations of these stones were extremely significant to Egyptian beliefs because the bright stones were regarded as fragments of the sky and heavens that had rained down to earth. Because they were thought to have come from the sky, pieces formed from faience were therefore thought to be appropriate offerings back to the spirits. By using faience to make marsh bowls, Egyptians were mimicking the natural elements they valued from stones and enhancing the meaning behind the bowls through the influence of a man-made material. By having more of a role in the fabrication of objects meant for tombs, Egyptians were strengthening their relationships to the dead. Although faience was often used as a cheaper way to make larger objects, like bowls, marsh bowls were not the only things Egyptians made out of faience. Small figures and amulets were also commonly made out of faience. These are some faience figurines currently owned by the Walters Art Museum. Why do you think these small figures were made out of faience rather than lapis lazuli or turquoise? They are small enough that it should not have been difficult to carve from natural stone. Actually, much like marsh bowls, most Egyptian amulets of deities and other spiritual figures were made out of faience. This is likely for reasons we have previously discussed in relation to the marsh bowls, in which Egyptians used this material that intersected the artificial man-made and the natural world in order to have a stronger connection to these deities and spirits. The deities that they honored created everything in the universe, so man creating something new to give back is the perfect way to show the respect and appreciation Egyptians had for these deities. Now let's take a step back and look at our bowl with fish and lotuses one more time. Doesn't the brilliant blue shine mean so much more now that we understand what this material meant to the Egyptians? The tilapia will continue to carry their lotus flowers and swim in circles for eternity in a cycle of rebirth and regeneration. I hope that you have a greater appreciation of the techniques of illusionism utilized in the bowl that elevate the viewing experience, because we are not just looking at a bowl. We are looking at a stylistic representation of new life, what Egyptians thought was a fitting way to honor and sustain the dead in their afterlives, and most importantly, how Egyptians explored and innovated upon the natural world upon them. I hope what you have observed and learned sticks with you long after your visit, and that you come again soon to learn more about ancient artifacts.